Hello and welcome to MotorInc First. Karthikeya and I went to Bengaluru same day together, more or less, and he drove the new Toyota Camry Hybrid and I rode the 2025 update to the Ather 450X electric scooter. And despite the fact that Karthik has no idea what this scooter is about, he's going to tell us 90% of the story.
90% of the story.
Yes.
Okay, so it's Ather 450X.
Yes.
No new name also.
No.
Okay, it's just the update for 2025.
Yes.
Which means it's the same design. Something to do with new colors.
Two of them.
Battery. Two. Oh, wow. That's more than I expected. That would be one color.
To the point where I asked one of them saying, did you make any design changes? He said, why do we need design changes? I said, just to make sure people understand that this is the updated version of the scooter. We have two new colors.
And obviously no new graphics in that, obviously.
No.
They've always just had that tab at the side. Battery size wouldn't have changed.
No.
Somehow they would have got more range out of it.
I'm honestly telling you, we've not discussed this before. You're right.
This is a format, right? We can get
it's claimed is 15 kilometers more range in the economy modes, roughly.
Okay.
And 10 kilometers more range in the upper modes, roughly.
Okay. So where does it take that to? Because I mean, there was one step like this previously as well.
Now they're saying that this is all four scooters. First of all, let's clarify that. So that's the Ather 450S, the base model with the 2.9 kilowatt battery. Then there is the X with the 2.9, the X with the 3.7, and the Apex with the 3.7. So we're talking about a total of four scooters.
Okay.
These are the range changes across all of them.
So all of them have the same amount of increment.
Yes.
Okay.
The batteries haven't changed. The motor calibrations have not changed at all. But the economy modes, about 15 extra kilometers on a full charge. And in the performance modes, roughly 10 kilometers extra on a full charge. But this is a clue to Karthikeya. Again, we have not discussed the scooter. The ARAI or IDC numbers for these have not changed at all.
Right.
So how do you think they've improved the range, Karthik?
So that's what I would have thought, that what is this, while you was telling me all that, I was thinking about what would that mean? It means some change in efficiency of how the system works, but that would mean something else would have had to change for that, which is not the case. So software.
And tires.
Oh, and tires. Oh, really?
So Ather said MRF and Ather have worked really well together. Same sizes, but they are lower rolling resistance. They have reinforced sidewall and they add some amount of range to the equation.
Okay.
Second, they brought Magic Twist, which is their reverse region control, to all of the 450s, all the X's, and that is also responsible for increments in range. I'm going to take my tablet out at some point and read you the numbers because there's just too many numbers in this story for me to keep track of everything.
Magic Twist, you said X's.
So they were on the Apex before.
S?
They were on the Apex before and they were on the Rizta. They hadn't come to the 450 series at all. Increasingly, as I use the system, I have my doubts about how effective this system is because it seems like the complication is too much for the reward that you get from it. Okay. But Ather is saying most Ather Apex riders use Magic Twist at least once a week.
Once a week?
That was my reaction. What difference does it make if they use it once a week?
This is something you should be using every ride, right? If it has to be.
Exactly. So they're calculating that you will get some amount of extra range from using Magic Twist. You will get some extra range from that tire. And obviously coasting region is in there, which is now also built in because the system is integrated. And from that, the average rider will see about 15 more. What that means is if you were to do what we do, which is take the IDC and use about 70% of that as your daily actual range that you will see, nothing has changed.
Right.
If you account for some efficiency from the tire, some from the system, then you should be able to see 10 to 15 kilometers more of range.
Which is good. And let's say tires would give you maybe 2 to 3%.
I'll tell you exactly what the numbers are. I have it here.
All right, let's go.
So they're saying up to 24% more range.
Oh.
Up to 24% more range, out of which tires contribute about 15 kilometers. On the average use cycle, this is not going to be true for all riders. This is what they're expecting on average. 5 comes from regen.
Oh.
and 5 comes from magic twist. Region magic twist being magic twist, you're actively controlling region, and normal region being coasting region when you close the throttle and let the scooter do its thing.
Okay.
So that's how they're gaining 20 kilometers of range.
So they're saying 24% gain,
Yes.
of which majority is tire.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And what that basically means to me is Ather has been very, very cautious with their battery pack and motor. It's a very stable system. It doesn't tend to overheat. It doesn't seem to cause anybody any problems, and they're unwilling to mess with it. So could they have optimized the battery further? In theory, yeah, sure, why not? Could they have optimized the motor further? Yes, of course. Why shouldn't they? But it's a stable system. They're getting ready to do their IPO, etc., etc. Let's not mess with it. Let us look at what peripheral systems we can drive more economy out of. Tires are a great place to start. And what I'm really happy about is, now I know the name of the tire, is called the MRF Zapper N E-Tread.
E-Tread. Okay.
MRF spells tire words weirdly, like hike is HYKE, hike is HYKE. This is tread, TRED.
TRED.
D.
Okay.
Okay. So these tires are now going to be standard across the lineup.
Okay.
And we got to ride this at the Arwani grid, which is like a slightly more than a go-kart circuit.
Okay.
And around the area are dirt roads and then main roads.
Oh.
And I rode it in all 3 environments.
Okay.
I couldn't tell any difference between the previous MRF tire to this tire.
Oh,
and
really?
the previous tire was very good.
Huh.
So I am very happy that they've gone down the low rolling resistance, but it doesn't seem to affect your braking. It doesn't seem to affect your acceleration. And I was cornering pretty hard there.
My question would have been change in comfort.
They've basically said that they have currently 2 suspension maps, if you think about it. One is the Rizta map, which is slightly more comfort oriented, and there is the 450X map, which is slightly more sporty. We believe there is room to improve both. But they're saying the customer seems to perceive the 450 as a sportier scooter and the Rizta as a slightly more comfortable scooter, so they don't want to mess with it.
Right.
So they haven't done anything on the suspension.
The reason why I would have asked for your feedback on that is because anyways, like you said, the 450 is a sportier kind of scooter, and it always rode that way as well. Very balanced with additional weight and all, but you always had that feel of what's happening with the road and all of that.
Nothing has changed.
Okay, which is a good thing because everything that Shumi said about this tire, the NE tread, is that it has a stiffer sidewall. When they say reinforced sidewall, is basically saying that, okay, because this is carrying more weight because of the battery, etc. So they reinforce the sidewall to carry that load better. And that would typically end up giving some additional firmness. But clearly they've calibrated it so that the overall comfort is not compromised.
It's roughly, to me, exactly what I remember the 450X being over the bumps and in the corners. Nothing has changed. So if you've thought so far that the 450s are uncomfortable scooters, you're going to continue to think they're uncomfortable. If you think they're a very nice sporty scooter, you're going to continue to think they're a very nice scooter. So as much of feedback as comes through earlier, that much feedback is still coming through.
Okay.
No change on that front. Okay. The second change is that they've added multi-mode traction control.
Okay, this was not on the Apex also?
They brought skid control to the Rizta first. And on the Rizta, it's a really simple system. We compare the 2 wheel speeds. And hardware that they've added is the ABS ring, effectively, as a speed sensor. And they say, oh, rear is spinning too fast, let's cut motor. And what they're saying is, because they're cutting motor, and it's not an engine, the number of things that happen before the torque dissipates is much less, so they can react very, very quickly.
Okay.
So on the Rizta, I had a feeling that it worked so effectively that you couldn't actually tell whether it was working or not.
Super.
Which is awesome, right? Now they have 3 traction control modes. Okay, so the base one is called rain. Then there's
before you go further, because Shumi's brought up ABS ring, some of you might not know what it actually does. So it's a ring, metallic ring with slots in it, and there's a sensor on one side which basically reads the gaps, right? So
it's a magnetic sensor.
So it just reads the movement of the wheel, and it can tell you how many times it's passed a gap and then come to a tooth, like that. So by that, by the rate at which it spins and it senses those gaps, it knows what speed you're doing.
Correct.
It's a very simple way of measuring speed and basically identifying when it's locked, because then the movement will stop.
Yeah, and systems can also tell whether the speed is tending towards 0 or not. So the system can intervene up to 10 times a second, 20 times a second, depending on how expensive and fine-tuned the system is. And the idea is it is going to come to 0 at what point should the system, for example, the ABS system, intervene and unlock that wheel.
Correct.
And in the case of the traction control, it's the opposite. It can only work on the rear wheel because that's the only place where we can control the speed actively, and it can decide to cut power if the front is spinning at X, but the rear is spinning higher than X.
Correct.
And again, the intervention decides how you feel about that. So in the off-road situation, going over X on the rear wheel should be totally okay because you do spin up the wheel.
Correct.
But in the rain, it may not be acceptable, and that's what they've done.
Okay.
On the Rizta, it was just an on and off system. Now you've got a 4-set system.
And you
can
were
switch
saying
it.
rain is the
You can switch it off.
Okay.
There's rain, there's road, and there's rally.
rally.
There is a little bit of hyperbole here. So this sand color that you're seeing on the screen, it's called hyper sand.
Oh, it's got sand color. Okay, so what's the second color?
It's called stealth blue.
What kind of blue is that? Sorry, I've
don't-
not seen it. So I have no
It
idea.
looked like the Rizta blue,
Okay.
like a navy blue matte
Okay.
kind of thing, is
Okay.
what I remember of it. And they chose to give me the sand scooter instead, so
Okay.
we're okay.
Okay.
To me, as somebody who writes a lot, hyper sand sounds like ampersand, but hey, that's just me. Okay, so you can switch it off, and if you switch off traction control, you should know every time you key off and key on, it will reset to whatever mode you had left it last when you switched it off.
Oh, nice. Oh, that's good.
Only when you switch it off. If you're in any of the other traction control modes, it remembers what you were in, so good job.
Oh, super.
Rain mode has a certain intervention point where it will not let the scooter spin almost at all. And when it cuts power, then it returns a relatively small amount of power
Okay.
until you close the throttle and reset the system, in which case the intervention point goes up again. There was no real wet condition to ride on this. They had created a mud pit and all of that stuff. I didn't want to go into it because I had to catch a flight in the evening and I didn't want muddy boots and all of this nonsense in my bag. I'm being honest with you. I switched to road mode. The road mode intervention point is just a slightly higher than rain. So a little bit more slip is allowed. Rain is very, very cautious. Road is just a little less cautious. But power restoration is much stronger than in rain mode. And again, it cycles until it senses a closed throttle and resets the system. Reset being intervention point is quite high, restoration points are relatively low. And then in rally mode, the intervention point is very late, so you can spin the scooter up. And then the restoration of the power is a lot more progressive, allowing you to keep the slide going if you feel like it before it stops it. And in each case, when you close the throttle, it goes back to saying, now I want to find the intervention point, not the restoration point. Okay, they showed me the graphs of this. I'm not allowed to have pictures of that graph. So I am going to draw from memory the 3 graphs and leave them here. So you can see the difference in the interventions and in the restoration points.
So quite simply, the rain mode would be like a very beginner friendly, like
Yeah.
just very mild.
Very mild. Now the thing is, the usability, there is a problem.
Oh, there is. Okay.
Yeah, because electric scooters heat up. When electric scooters start to get hot, what they cut back is how fast can you discharge the battery, which is to say how fast can you spin the motor up, as it were. So as the scooter gets hotter, anyway, the intervention points become harder and harder to reach. So once the scooter is nice and toasty, especially something relatively gentle like a 450S, I don't think you'll ever activate traction control without really trying to do it. And the editor will now put footage of the traction control system at work. It was hard work because this road is quite broken. This is right outside Arwani grade. On the left is accumulated dirt. I am on the accumulated dirt trying to get traction control to kick in.
And this is on an X.
This is on the X 3.7. Yes.
Okay.
I'm trying to get it to work. It doesn't activate half the time because it just doesn't have enough torque to spin the wheel.
Right.
And the hotter the scooter gets, the harder it becomes to try and spin it at all. And therefore, you will see that as I go down from WOP to sport to ride.
Did you have issues with heating?
No. It's just that as it's getting hotter, deration is happening. And as deration happens, that instant kick is being tapered back.
You could perceive that.
Yeah. And as it is tapered back, the reason for traction control becomes weaker and weaker and weaker. So when I tried to get your ride mode to activate traction control, you have to effectively come to a stop and then give it full gas. Right? So even in rally mode, which is super lax and it is supposed to let you spin and all of that, it takes work to get it to activate while the scooter is warm. When it is cold, yes, okay, it will wake up. And it does a really good job. No two ways about it. Utility value of this traction control, reasonably weak.
Okay.
The longer your commute is towards the end, it just won't have the torque development required to need this system.
And ABS is still not standard.
There is no ABS.
Oh, sorry, there was TPMS, which was an option. Sorry.
Yeah. We'll come to the TPMS thing. So the thing is, Would I want to have traction control? Always. I am of the opinion that an invisible rider aid is a good thing. I know that we'll have a debate about this in the comments where people will say then people won't learn how to ride. If it's a good system, it will be invisible until you need it, which means the latitude you need to learn how to ride is there and you can turn it off if that is your situation. But if I were to go out and practice how a slide feels, I would turn the traction control off. But if I was commuting or touring on any product at all, I would keep my traction control on.
Okay.
If you go to most media launches today, they will actively tell you never to switch off the rider aids, because in the middle of that sequence of events, if you have a crash, if you break the scooter or motorcycle or whatever, then somebody else is inconvenienced by that process. Even they accept that this rider aid being in the background is a good thing. I am not going to argue with it. However, does something like the Ather actually need traction control? Is it powerful enough to require it? No, it's not.
I think the good thing about systems like this, the way I think about it is, especially for scooters, is that I'm automatically biased in the sense that people who are buying scooters aren't really involved in the act of riding. Let's say most of them. Okay. So the additional safety aids, etc., because they're not thinking of the riding aspect of it as a self-improvement facet of their life.
No.
It's just a tool.
It's a tool.
And so this sitting in the background and thinking about so many situations where there's oil and whatever, you'll have a little bit more latitude to save your ass if required.
Correct.
Right?
But to me, if we are going to approach it from that side, then ABS is a must.
That's my point.
Which is why it increasingly feels like Ather is refusing to do hardware changes because they are pre-IPO maybe, I don't know. But it feels like the brochure is becoming larger, but your utility set is not significantly growing.
And that's the thing. That's why I came to ABS. I said, yeah, this is okay for me, presuming that ABS is there.
I'll talk about Magic Twist next. In Magic Twist, you will see why ABS needed to be there.
Okay. So shall we go there now?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Magic Twist, for those who don't know, is on the Ather throttles now, you roll to a stop, that's 0, but you can go beyond 0 a little bit. And as you go further and further beyond 0, the regen becomes stronger and stronger.
It's only 2-3 degrees, right?
It's a very small amount of movement, which is one of the issues. It's really hard to modulate. And they obviously cannot do many more degrees of movement, because the further your hand goes like this, the harder it becomes to use the front brake. There are two issues with Magic Twist. One is it only works on the rear wheel, which I will explain in a minute why it is suboptimal, because I experienced it this time. And the other is, most of us who ride well ride with 2 fingers on the brake lever. So when you go like this, your finger rises up, and now modulating the brake becomes really difficult. So as traffic becomes denser or your speeds become higher, trying to decide whether I can commit to Magic Twist for this particular stop or not becomes like this weird herky-jerky thing. And every single time I've tried it, I had a Rizta on test, the top Z model. We had the Apex here. We have an Apex right now, in fact. Every single time in really light traffic, where I have the brain space to work Magic Twist with full attention on Magic Twist, I have been able to use it. But as soon as traffic crosses a certain threshold of density where I have to pay attention to what's happening around me, I go right back to using normal brakes.
Why can't they do it the way the cars do it?
I don't know. Because when I tried the car system on the Ultraviolet, it worked flawlessly. That MotorInc First is on the app if you'd like to see that. And I set it to, I don't know, 9. And when I did this, it was like a V-twin engine braking. It was a lot.
Oh, really?
So I said, okay, I don't want this much. Yeah, because the thing with regen is they all say the same thing, that it is possible to get regen to the point where it will lock up the rear wheel. So you have to make a threshold where it will not lock the rear wheel, right? So Ultraviolet did a good job of level 9, but level 9 is just way too much, right? So I said, okay, like go to the other side and got it to 2. And at 2, it's like an old 2-stroke. You close the throttle and just rolling on, right? With minimal deceleration. And I discovered over time that when I'm out on the highway, I'm happy to run level 8 or 7. And when I'm in the city, I'm happy to run level 3 or 2. So that in city, closing the throttle has a minimal speed variation. Whereas on the highway, where I do this a lot less, I can work with a lot more variation. Perfect. Why? Because it only needs you to get off the throttle, which is a natural response to something happening in front of you, and that starts the braking process. Magic Twist requires you to take another step. And the thing is, yes, okay, efficiency-wise, Magic Twist will give you some amount of regen back. But to me, my natural action would be to close the throttle and then to hit the brake anyway. If I could get the same benefit from those two actions, this unnecessary complication is not required. So I would tell Ather that if I were you, and if I am the kind of company who makes people's lives simpler by producing high-tech things that work, a closed throttle producing a certain amount of regen is about as complicated as this needs to be.
But you said they have coasting regen, right?
They have coasting region. If I could set up the levels of coasting region, I would get magic twist out of it without having to do this.
Yeah.
It's an unergonomic position. It's really hard to use. And I think the only people who are using it regularly is people who ride so slowly that this is not part of their setup. And this is why people riding Apexes only use it once a week.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So to me, magic twist, there's no magic in it.
Okay.
There is a twist, and the twist is the problem.
So what you're saying is that they should take the ideas of the different levels of regen and apply that to just the coasting region.
That's it.
So you can customize it,
That's
and
it.
that's it. You're done with that.
That's it. You give me 10 levels, and at each rider's level, they will figure out which level works the most for them.
That makes a lot of sense.
And they will never touch the setting again. And that's exactly how I would do it.
Yeah.
So
Because
to me,
typically you're using it in city environments, so you're not going to need too much variation.
yeah, it feels like the engineers are very thrilled with the idea of magic twist. I think that the riders will never really be that kind of thrilled with magic twist.
I mean, even from an optimization of your range standpoint, you'll get more out of it this way, right? It almost seems like they don't want you to use it too much, the regen aspect of it, hard regen.
Look, to me, as somebody who's tested electrics over and over and again, when this whole argument comes down to 7%, 8% savings by using regen loads, I'm not convinced that it adds all that much value.
No,
Sorry.
when you're taking an extra step.
Exactly. So to me, if you're in the range anxiety circus, which is before you've bought the first electric, I can understand that all of these are ways to satisfy your need to saying, but how will I get enough range? Once you're on the other side of that equation though, I don't know of anybody who's bought an electric and has complained volubly about range to the point where they had to get rid of their electric. We all work out a mechanism which makes this work. So as a way to settle your mind, we have coasting region that will give you 3 kilometers more and magic twist which will give you, I understand it. But again, this is what I said about traction control. It seems like the brochure's growing, not your utility set.
I get that they're trying to optimize everything that they can to maximize range, which is great. But this is not making on-road sense.
Yeah, I agree. Because these range improvements that they're talking about are fundamentally dependent on you and your riding.
Yeah.
Right? When I'm not testing electrics and I'm riding how I normally ride, I can go through on my 27 kilometer commute on the average electric scooter 40 to 45% of the battery, which means that no matter what the range claims are, I am experiencing a range of about 54, 50, 60 kilometers, right? Which is what the Honda Activa electric is rated at or something. I think it's rated at 80. That scooter, I will need to charge it every 16 minutes, right? I am a very different rider and my range experience is very different. But since I've done it for so long, it doesn't bother me. If it has 55 kilometers of range showing, I know I will get to the office peacefully. There is no stress. So, magic twist, traction control, these were the two primary things.
Okay.
Now, there is some packaging changes. So, if you buy an Ather Apex now, this has been available for a while. I don't think Ather has spoken about it, so they're using this opportunity to communicate it to you. If you buy an Ather Apex now, you get the Halo helmet as standard.
Okay.
This is still not ECE certified, so we don't really know how safe this helmet is. Ather is still persisting with their DOT rating. I mean, I could wake up today and say I make helmets now and they're DOT rated. Until somebody comes to verify this, that claim would be true. So as far as I'm concerned, this Halo helmet is no use.
Okay, and Apex is still available in that shade of blue only, that translucent thingy at the back.
Yes, same. No changes on that front at all. But if you buy a Apex now, you get the helmet for free.
Okay.
What I'm really upset about is that when you buy the Apex, you don't get the TPMS for free, which would be a far more useful thing to have than the silly helmet. Especially given that this helmet is some 12 or 13,000 rupees. And you don't get two helmets. It's not like I ride two up, I'm buying an Apex or I'm going to get two helmets. You just get one. So I would rather honestly have TPMS standard on all the scooters, which it is not. It is optional. I think it's 3,000-4,000 rupees to buy one. For electrics, I think TPMSs are essential because the electric charging cycle breaks your usual way of checking tire pressures until you fall into the new habit. Tire pressures affect range, performance, handling, everything massively.
Safety.
Right? On an average ICE, you'll be at the petrol pump, let's call it once a week, and therefore you'll fall into the habit of checking tire pressures. And people like us who test a lot, we have our own tire pressure gauges and we will constantly check and recheck tire pressures during testing and personally. Electrics, you just don't fall into that cycle. So I'll tell you this, and this is a matter of record, I'm telling you, we've never received an electric vehicle in this office, two-wheelers, which has had the right tire pressures ever. It has never happened. We have had underinflated, overinflated. We've had the same vehicle under and overinflated at both ends. Okay, so to me, a TPMS is an essential piece of equipment for electric specifically. And the fact that Ather would rather give you their helmet, which clearly they can't sell enough of, instead of the TPMS, bad decision. They shouldn't have done it.
Yeah, I think TPMS, ABS, these are the things that you would expect as step-ups for the scooters now.
Yeah. Apart from this, under-seat storage, they have changed nothing. Footboard, they have changed nothing. The screens, they're still a little bit laggy.
Okay.
And in the riding cycle, I rode about 40% of a charge. So I went from, I think, 93% down to, I'm going to say 47% or something like that. I rode a dirt road, which is right outside Arwani. Let's call it about a kilometer to the main road, which is just pure dirt. And it is, it has rocks in it and ruts in it and all of that kind of thing. Onto the main road, which has a few potholes and some amount of traffic. Fundamental change from what Athers feel like? No. Slick experience, well calibrated, no hiccups anywhere. The only hiccup I discovered is that when you're on that dirt road, there are situations when you close the throttle and go into magic twist, and that locks the rear wheel up.
No.
Because it's calibrated for tarmac. So I said, why can't you unlock the rear wheel or keep it unlocked? Because, I mean, you've got all the parts of that software and hardware setup you need to be able to control that. So they said they're working on it, but it is a much trickier thing to make the decision as to when
to freewheel it.
So it's a tricky thing to do. But if you're using magic twist like this and you're on a dirt road, you can lock the rear up.
Okay.
And traction control will not intervene in that situation.
So that's not traction control's job.
Because there's no power to be cut.
Yeah.
What has to be cut is the amount of region has to be scaled back. Now, I don't know how you'd react to that, because effectively you'd be slowing slower than you're expecting. So it's a weird situation.
And stability also, you might catch you off.
Yeah, so this weird situation is because Ather's doing a lot with their software, but they're doing absolutely nothing with their hardware. So in hardware terms, for 2025, they've added 2 phonic wheels.
What?
The ABS ring. They've added 2 phonic wheels and the sensor wire. That's it.
Colors.
Okay.
Come on, man.
1 5 nanometer thick layer of paint in a new color.
2 new colors.
Yep, and that's what my notes are at.
Okay.
The MRF tire is a multi-compound tire.
Okay.
I forgot to mention that. And they've said, categorically, they've said no change to any dynamic parameters of the scooter. Acceleration remains where it was. Braking remains exactly where it was. And in terms of handling, because it was such a small change, I had finished it and then I went out onto the Arwani track and I rode my heart out. And it felt great. All Athers handle amazingly. This one did too. When you come back onto the main straight, it's a fast right into kink left.
Fast right into a kink left, okay.
So you're accelerating throughout the whole thing. And there is no place to really brake or slow down or feather. So you're basically on the throttle, you basically flick it left. A scooter with tires that thin, which is what everybody says about Athers, shouldn't flick, but the Ather does, and confidently.
The confidence is the thing. Yeah.
So it's always been a great handling platform, still is. I think now, in hindsight, maybe the Rizta could be a lot calmer in terms of being a family scooter, a lot more comfort oriented. To give you a benchmark for that, the TVS iQube has been the comfort benchmark for us because it's soft, luxurious and plush to the point where at higher speeds, it actually becomes bouncy. But most people don't see higher speeds on scooters, so that's just fine. So if you ride an iQube normally, it really feels luxuriously well suspended, which the Athers simply do not do.
Even the Rizta does.
No, it's much it's noticeably more comfortable than a 450, but is it something that you say, wow, this is so comfy? No, that only one scooter does, and that's the iQube. Okay. Not even the ICs, none of the ICs do that. They don't reach the place where the iQube is, because the iQube basically says, you know what, if it feels terrible over 60, we are okay, nobody goes over 60. So under that, oh man, it's just so good. That's it. That's everything. Nothing else has changed.
Time for a quick summary.
Just one more thing I will add.
Quick story.
just add one more thing. Ather's warranties are in play again. So if you buy the Pro Pack, you get the 3-year extension, which makes it a 5-year, 60,000 kilometer warranty or something. For the battery, vehicle warranties remain at 3 years. And for about 5,000 rupees, now you can extend that warranty to 8 years and 80,000 kilometers.
And 3 years is how many kilometers? Anything else?
60,000.
Okay.
So it's 5 years and 60,000 kilometers is your battery warranty with Pro Pack. and then you can add 5,000 rupees to that and purchase another
3 years.
another coverage, which adds to 8 years, 80,000 kilometers in total. Ather points out that they are the only ones offering SOC protection, which means that during the warranty period, if your SOC falls below 70%, then they will replace the battery, which no other manufacturer is doing. They, I think, are the only people who also cover deep discharge, which means that if your battery falls to critically low states and gets destroyed in the process because you just didn't use the scooter enough, that is also covered by the warranty, which, as far as I can tell, no other manufacturer currently covers it. They are highlighting all of this because the Chetak is on the rise, clearly, and the Chetak does not offer an SOC guarantee on their warranties.
But this is actually a very good thing for them to do, to speak about these cases, because I mean, if it does happen to somebody, they know where they're at, right?
Correct.
Instead of trying to guess. And it happens often that maybe the person you're referring to, like your dealer, might not be aware. And the default response is, hey, it's not part of the coverage.
And since you brought up the dealer, Ather has finally rolled out their AMC plans.
Okay.
So you have service packages you can buy. They're fairly straightforward. Their website is very good with this. I'm not going to go into the detail. The only thing you have to remember is Pro Pack you buy from Ather. Guarantees you buy from Ather, but the AMCs you buy from your dealer. So it is tied to the service center. It is not tied to Ather as a whole. So if you had the option of going to 2 Ather service centers, you can't swap them once you buy the AMC. The AMC is valid at the place you bought it at. Just clarify.
That's strange, no? Okay. And there's been, I mean, I've been getting a little bit of messages from Ather owners saying the service experience has not been great. Anything? Have you heard anything?
Yeah. So what had happened is, in the meantime, I think roughly before the monsoon this year to a little bit later than that, there was a belt supply that they changed, and those belts were not great.
Okay.
Which I think, as far as I can tell, Ather has replaced all the issue belts along the way. The shrouding around the belts has grown. So it was a major source of annoyance more than anything else, because that belt was squeaky and noisy, and when the filth got into it, it became really tiresome to use. I don't believe outside of that they've had any major issues.
Okay.
And now that belt thing is behind them. So there is a lot of, when something goes wrong in the Indian market, it tends to stay in your mind for a long time. And I think it's just the tail of that. It was unfortunate that it happened, but I think that's behind them.
So by and large, you're saying there is no issue with the service or whatever that you've heard of?
No.
It's just been with regard to replacement of this part, which needed to for a certain set of scooters.
Yeah. You ask anybody who owns an Ola and an Ather whose service is better, I don't think there's going to be any confusion left.
That's not setting a very high benchmark.
Hey, you can set a benchmark low and make yourself look good, yeah. What's wrong with that?
Okay, cool. Summary required?
Yes.
Okay, let's do this. The 2025 Ather 450 has been written by Shumi, and it's the 450 family altogether, because a lot of the features that debuted on the Apex have made its way down to the entire family now, which includes notably the Magic Twist, which is a regen system and will improve efficiency. So let's go with the headlines first. The main changes here are new tires, which are aimed at improving range. There is new software which is aimed at improving range, and that is by way of your coasting regen. And then there's Magic Twist, which is to increase the regen instead of braking, so that you again get more range. And the overall claims across the range of 450s from the Apex down to the S is a claimed increase of about 15 kilometers. And this is as per Ather's claims, whatever they call it, they have a name.
True range.
True range, yeah. So the true range will go up by about 15 kilometers in the in the eco mode. And
so it's 20 and 15, my mistake.
Okay,
Please correct it.
Okay, so the range has gone up about 20 kilometers in the eco mode and 15 kilometers in the normal mode. And a big contributing factor to this are the tires, as the breakup Shumi shared with us. Part of it is the coasting regen, part of it is the Magic Twist. And the Magic Twist, interestingly enough, it sounds cool, but it's not really that useful. Ather themselves have found that with the Apex users, it's only used once a week. And that's been explained quite clearly why. Because when you use Magic Twist, you can't really get a normal hand on the brake lever, and so you're always guessing about whether to use Magic Twist or not, and then instead just to go to the brakes instead. And what Shumi pointed out was it should be done simpler, made easier, and that's by way of just when you close the throttle, it allows you to select what kind of regen level you want instead of just using a default setting, and that would take away the need for the Magic Twist aspect of it, and you'd be using it a lot more and possibly increasing the range much more.
And in that sense, I think the name Magic Twist is the correct name. Because see, if you think about what magic is, it's not real. It's a sleight of hand, right? So yeah, it fits perfectly. Magic twist.
So Magic Twist is there. It's sounds great on brochure, but not really that useful in the real world. The tires, the good part is they have a firmer sidewall. They are made out of different compounds, which will increase grip and confidence when you're riding. It will increase efficiency. But the good thing is there is no penalty for these advantages. Like it could have felt firmer, which is not the case. Shumi said that it felt absolutely normal. Didn't feel any different from the Athers that he's ridden before, and we've got one in the office, so he's got a reference point right here. With the Magic Twist, the only thing was that on the dirt road that he rode it on, when he closed the throttle, that was the one instance in which the rear did lock, and that brings us to traction control. This bike also gets traction control. Now the entire range gets traction control. So you have 4 levels of traction control: off, rain, street, road, and rally. So obviously with increasing levels of leniency, but more importantly, what was interesting to me was also different levels of coming back to normal. So the rate at which it comes back to normal varies. So in rain mode, it will keep you in a soft mode for longer. You have to close the throttle completely for it to come back to giving you the kind of acceleration it was delivering earlier, torque it was delivering earlier. So that was an interesting thing for me, and I guess that will take a little bit of learning. But more importantly, what Shumi was saying was to really get into a zone where you need traction control on this scooter is hard. He tried it on the dirt road and tried to spin up the rear wheel, and it took a fair bit of work. And as the motor gets hotter, the battery gets hotter, the performance does get tempered. So the chances of you spinning up the wheel isn't that high. But either ways, we think it's a great idea to have this because it just makes it safer for people on the road in the off chance of unpredictable conditions. So that's your traction control aspect. The thing that gets highlighted in this for us is that while Ather is doing all these cool things like traction control, Magic Twist, and all of that, the fundamentals which we would want on a scooter like this, like ABS, is not there. On the Apex, now for the same price, you're also getting the funky Ather helmet, whatever it's called, Halo, right? Halo.
Goodbye.
Yeah.
Halo.
So instead of that, they could have offered TPMS, which is a 3,000 rupee extra, whereas the helmet is a 15 or something.
12
15,000. So we think they could add value, which really would keep their riders safer and more in command and control on the roads with these aspects rather than these other bits. Other than this, oh yeah, so the big difference, of course, are the colors. There are 2 new colors. So one is the sand brown. Hyper sand, which is the one that Shumi rode. And there's another one which is a blue, kind of like the blue that debuted on the Rizta. Stealth blue, which is matte and inky kind of blue, which is a nice color. I like that color. And other than that, there are no changes to the design. The hardware remains the same. There's no change to the battery pack, to the motor, to the design of the scooter. The hardware in terms of the screen is the same. So Shumi said it was a little laggy earlier. It continues to be laggy today. Other than that, no change to the underseat storage, to the floorboard. And
the seat?
And the seat, it's all the same. So in terms of usability, it will remain like the 450 has up until now. Yep. The difference is you get a little bit more range, a little bit more tech thrown your way, if you can make the best of it.
Yeah, and to summarize, if you were to switch from a 2024 450 to a 2025 450 and ride them exactly the same way, you'd barely see a range change. You will see a range change, but it will barely be there.
Correct.
It's not until you start saying, I'm going to use coasting region, I am going to use Magic Twist.
Can you switch off coasting region?
I think, yeah, you've always been able to switch it off. You still can. Okay. So all of the software features, hill hold, fail safe, whatever Ather's names are, all of them you can turn off.
Okay. So the only thing you haven't told us is the price.
Yeah. So the price is also roughly in the same zone.
Okay.
The price rises between 2,000 and 6,000 rupees depending on the model. So it's not a big change. And from year to year, seeing where the prices have been for a while, I think that's fine.
Okay.
And now I have lots of questions like, so you've got an Ather 450 with a rally traction control mode. So when are they going to Dakar?
Yeah, I'd love to see. Do you know how many charging points there are on the route?
The team will bring the charging points now.
Genset.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know how Charlie and Ewan went from South America upwards and then eventually they were charging it with diesel, right? It was called Long Way Up, I think. Okay. They had the Harley Davidson Lightning or whatever it was. And the first episode, we don't want this to become like a litany about charging. And by the second episode, it was all charging. And we clearly think it's not ready for electrics to do this yet.
Yeah.
That's one. Second, Ather has announced in their IPO red herring prospectus that there are two platforms that are coming. One is a motorcycle. One is a platform which will be a lot more flexible than their current 450 and derivative platforms.
1 sec, I want to do that again. Scooter, say bike. Okay.
So a motorcycle and another platform which I think will be a scooter platform. They haven't clarified, but it will be a more flexible platform. So they'll be able to get more form factors and function out of that platform.
Okay.
Is what they've said will happen next.
I have questions.
Yeah.
Weren't they non-bike company at one point? Like they wanted to do only scooters?
So Tarun and Swapnil have both said, the founders, that they have been scooter riders. Like I remember asking Tarun saying why scooters, and he said he's from Ahmedabad, I think, and at home they had 6-7 scooters, and they're like 100% scooter family. So they understand scooter natively as a product, which is why they wanted to build the scooter. But I think now this motorcycle thing, between you and me, I think electric motorcycles with the current battery state make no sense.
I agree.
Either the prices will be idiotically high or the ranges will be idiotically low, is where we are at. I don't know where Ather will go and place their bike. Right. So can Ather's premium image allow them to sell a 7 lakh rupee bike with 300-400 kilometers of range? Yes, it should. Will those numbers be significant commercially? Not really. Can Ather produce a really premium version of an attractive and appealing version of, let's call it the Torque Kratos, which has some 150 kilometers of range, but the price isn't too high?
I was going to say, they always said that they wanted to be the electric Activa. So
correct.
Can it be the Honda Shine electric?
Exactly. And if you were to do the Honda Shine, whenever we've tested, including the Ultraviolet F77, we came to the conclusion that a large part of what is promised as an electric motorcycle today in that sector, it feels like a scooter without storage. And it's not able to get beyond that. So it would be interesting to see how they tackle that challenge. But do current battery states allow a nice motorcycle to exist? Not unless it's super expensive. Right? I mean, think about Ultraviolet. I love their motor. I love that battery. I love the powertrain. It's so nice. But when they take that huge battery block and put it in and give you that kind of range, which is so amazing, the chassis is gone. There's no space for a swing arm. The length it needs to be. The seat height has gone up. It's just not in a good place right now. So if I were Ather, then I would have to say, okay, we're going to have to split the battery pack into multiple parts, or have a far more complicated shape for a battery, right? If you look at the Himalayan battery and the Stark electric motorcycles, which is a company they own, those battery packs aren't rectangular blocks anymore.
And you know what? This is a challenge if it's that's underappreciated. We automatically assume that EVs would become much easier to design and work with because the batteries, you can use them anyway. Like in cars, right? We all thought that skateboard platform, it's done. It's done. Yeah, okay, sure it is. But there are compromises everywhere. Like right now, even with the Mahindras, and we'll talk about them, the constant issue is floor height. Right? So it's a packaging issue. And packaging always in bikes where you have far less space, it's always going to eat into some of the considerations that you have.
Yeah, think about the two Activas that have been announced, right? One of them, there's no space under the seat. Because the swappable batteries are sitting in there. The other scooters, the calculated IDC range is some 80. Take 70% of 80. I mean, you get more range on warp mode in the average Ather. Will it be enough? Will an Indian customer who trusts the Honda brand, etc., still not have range anxiety, thinking, oh my God, it's only going to give me 60 kilometers in the real world?
I'm really curious about them because I don't know what game they're going at, and I think only the prices will let us know what it is.
It could be as simple as trying to please the government's requirement that all manufacturers participate in the electric space and nothing more.
I also thinking like the Yulu users, right? They've been using whatever you want to call those, that general.
It's called the Yulu decks.
Yeah, I know, but there have been so many of that type of vehicle. I think now the last set that I've been seeing the last few months looks like a more robust kind of vehicle. But prior to that, there was some very use and throw kind of looking vehicles, right? I was wondering if the pricing is attractive enough. So the people who are doing deliveries, right? Which one of them will become interesting, right? Of the two.
Yeah, but see, if you were going to go into the B2C space with an electric, why would you put the Activa brand name on top of that? The Activa is a household name. Imagine if every delivery person has an Activa, which is a kind of scooter, and it is cheap and cheerful. Because look, let's not get carried away with Honda quality. Okay, in India, their quality is very far from their global quality. So immediately writing a comment saying, "But Honda makes high quality products." I'm happy that you have that perception. Honda is thrilled that you have that perception. It's not real. You ask anybody who's owned an Activa 3G or previous versus a 6G today. 99% of you told us in our comments when we did the Activa story that the quality is not the same. I'm saying if a delivery person has an Activa electric of this nature and you have the Activa 6G, will you two see eye to eye as we are owners of the same brand of the product? I'm not convinced.
Let's see. I don't think that's a challenge by in itself, but where they price it, I think that's going to be.
It has to be cheap. I mean, the spec is so low, it has to be cheap. In one, there are no batteries. In the other, the battery is like a tiny battery, so it has to be cheap.
Honda has to be. Is a question.
Yeah, but okay, this is a discussion for the future. It doesn't matter.
No, the reason I'm saying is what he's saying is right. The question is, will they be aggressive enough? Right. That is
again, I am entirely willing to believe that the government has put enough pressure on Honda to say you need to participate in this, and this is a thing to have out there saying we are participating in this.
Okay, chalo, we'll see. Anyways, but no timelines on that as of now.
I think 2025 March is what they announced as the launch date.
Oh, it's still that far away.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I have no idea why they did that event. But anyway, this is a whole different discussion. Kylaq BE6 questions have come, and the answer is very simple. We don't have enough information. Kylaq, we've not driven one yet. The car that was driven was called a prototype by Skoda themselves. The price came after that. Now finally, we have the price. We still not driven the car. There's no MotorInc First yet. BE6, we drove the top model, BE6. We have the prices of the base model. They're not even the same battery pack, same range. Motor spec is different. There's nothing to talk about yet. When we have the full information, then and only then will we do MotorInc First. On the motorcycle front, we are waiting for the 42 FJ and the 350 and the Adventure. Yes, the Adventure. They are in the media houses being tested. We are the last in that queue. So when they are all done, we will get it. Is what we've been told. We'll see. And middle of January, 19th-ish, I think there is a invite from Hero to ride something. I'm not sure what the product is.
Okay, cool. Hey, just wanted to ask if there is any MotorInc First you would want us to do. I know you've asked us to do them for even older vehicles, and now that we have the app where we can put out more content than we do on YouTube, we have this opportunity. So which older car or bike would you want us to do a MotorInc First of? So
MotorInc last.
Yeah, it will be the MotorInc last. It will be fun. So if there are any specifics that you have, let us know in the comments.
I tell you what, on the app, leave us a comment. We'll pick up the comments and we'll take the top 3 bikes and top 3 cars and we'll post it in circles saying vote to one to the top. And then we'll see if I am not promising yet, but we'll see if we can do a MotorInc First on that particular top car and top bike at least.
We'll have to get our hands on it again.
Yeah, and no, it'll be fun because in terms of logistics, finding a vehicle that is good enough to be tested so that you can make an opinion, difficult to do. A. B, I don't even know if that will come to YouTube at all. It's just so far out, but we'll see.
Yeah. We'll see. It's a nice thing because we've spoken about this before. You have spoken to us about it before. And now we could figure it out.
All of you are about to vote for the RX100 and the RD350. I see you.
This is how he seeds ideas. He'll be like, I get to write a RX again. All right. Cool. Anything else that needs to be added?
No, that's it.
Yeah. Awesome. So we are doing this in December. We think you will see it soon enough, but Jan is going to be busy. So if you have any specific questions about any of the vehicles that Shumi's mentioned right now, let us know in the comments as well. We'll keep those in mind when we go out and experience them, right? We're going to be seeing a lot more, like we spoke earlier, which will be the Creta EV, the Kylaq will also happen, the Cyrus will happen. So if you have any questions, let us know. We'll make a note of it and then we can answer it when we talk
also
about
Camry.
It. Oh yeah, Camry has been driven already. But yeah. Cool. So thank you so much for watching and we'll see you in the comments.